Glyn, welcome to the Family Business Show. Thank you so much for joining me.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you.
So let's get straight in. Our audience are other people running family businesses just like you. So why don't you tell us about your family business?
Well, we're in packaging, hardware and software, as I call it. So the machinery for actually wrapping products, and then the materials that are used on those machines. And they very much go hand in hand, which is one of the, I'd like to think, competitive advantages we have, because we do both, and most of our competition do one or the other. So we have a very much joined up approach, and it seems to work quite well.
Give us a picture of the business. What sort of size is it? Your type of client base? How many people you employ?
So there's 21 of us, I think. In terms of the size, we've actually grown 50% in the last 3 years.
Wow.
Which is quite, I never saw that coming really, but after 43 years, we double, 50% increase from year 40 to 43. But a lot of that is to do with the consumables, and we've had some pretty big contract wins in food, which has been a big plus for us, especially in this pandemic. So we've just ramped up the marketing, we've ramped up the product offering, the sales force, and we seem to be, by pure luck, in the right sectors in the current climate that we find ourselves in. All our customers, well, 90% of our customers are actually increasing volumes, not declining.
Yeah,
I think we only had 3 customers who actually shut during the pandemic.
Wow, okay, amazing. So let's rewind though, because you mentioned there you're 43 years in business. So yeah. How is it a family business? How did it start, and when did your involvement sort of start?
Well, my father pretty much started it in the late 70s. I went to university, did a degree in business, and sort of, I always had a passion for the business, but I was determined not to work in the family business to begin with, and that's exactly what I did. So it was a sandwich business course. The second year was in the United States, and I had too much of a good time having an academic year there that I didn't really apply for many jobs when I came back. So I sort of fell in on my sandwich year into the family business. Now in those days, very early 90s, we were a much smaller business, struggling, height of a recession. It was literally hand to mouth. And I just got the bug for it, just because I think with it being a much smaller business, and with me doing a business degree, I could do sort of the spreadsheets my dad couldn't do. I could do all this sort of stuff I really don't like doing now, but I could do then. And so I just got a bug. Went and travelled the world for 3 months, came back, and then just got straight onto sales, which was a challenge for the first year or two, but was pretty critical for a small business, sales being the lifeblood. I never really looked back. And then about 5 years after that, my sister joined. And, you know, as siblings, we used to fight like cats and dogs, and we've both since grown up now and get on quite well.
Fantastic. And how has your evolution as a leader sort of changed, evolved, grown over those years? Because you never went into it thinking I'm going to be the leader of this 11 million turnover business, or, you know, how has that changed? How have you grown?
Well, it was a natural transition. So, you know, my father was very good at leading the business, but not very good at some of the detailed stuff, which is pretty much me now. I'm not very good at the detailed stuff, but I could do the spreadsheets, I could do the numbers, I could do a lot of the sales, I could bounce around the country where he sort of didn't. And so there was a seamless sort of transition, so that when I was officially the MD in 2008, it was no big news. You know, I was pretty much doing that job anyway, just not in name. But it was interesting because I thought it'd be quite easy, and the first couple of years were actually, I found, harder than I expected. I think 2008, you know, it was pretty much the start of that big financial crisis. And, you know, so it was a challenging time, but looking back, it did me on a personal level the world of good, to be fair. And that's 12 years ago now, which I can't believe.
And is it important to you to be a family business? What does that sort of mean to you guys?
Well, it's an interesting time now because I've got kids. I mean, I've actually got my son working here today because he just needs some money. He's only 17, going on 7 when they're off school. So, he's not in the business, but he's doing some casual work. So I've got 2 kids. My sister's got 2 kids. So it will be interesting to see in the next sort of 5 to 10 years whether they do come into the business. And I think the jury's out on that one.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if they did, but we certainly wouldn't force it.
And do you think it matters in the space that you operate that you're an independent family business?
Does it matter? Well, I don't. The companies we tend to compete with are similar sized, so we don't have too many. I think there's 1 or 2 companies you could say which are PLCs, but the vast majority of the companies that we compete against tend to be family businesses. Funnily enough,
Yeah.
so it probably is important.
And do you think, for your team members and your staff, it matters that they know your dad, they know you, they know your sister? Do you think that matters compared to working for a corporate?
I think, does it matter? It is what it is. A lot of people in our business have been with us for many years. I mean, we've got one lad who started when he was 16, I think, 17. He's older than me. He's 53 now. So there's a lot of people, we've got people who've been here 10, 20 plus years, so they've seen a lot of transition. So yeah. I think it's a nice thing. It is what it is. We do have a family culture, a family feel, which can work both ways because, we do demand a lot as well. But I think we do look after people as well. So to me, that's a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So we are now, what's the date today? The 10th or the 11th of August. So we are now 5 months into the lockdown in the UK and this global coronavirus pandemic. So tell me how that has affected you. Can you remember back to March when it all kicked off and what it's been like since then?
Been quite funny, actually, quite interesting. So 23rd of March, I'll never forget that broadcast from Boris Johnson. I'm thinking, flipping it, what does this mean? Within 2 hours, we got an email from the trade association we're members of, PPMA, which made it very clear we were classed as essential business, which I was actually very, very pleased about. So I came in following day, addressed the whole company and pretty much said, it is business as usual. We are an essential business. We are staying open. But what I then did was I gave everybody in the business reduced hours on full pay because I thought demand would reduce. A 4-day week and short hours on full pay. We furloughed 2 people, one because he was shielding, one because he just joined the business on sales, so nothing he could do. But the rest of the company was fully working. And then we were on short hours and actually demand on one side of the business actually increased dramatically, which we never expected. Couldn't get stock quick enough from the continent. And to be fair to the engineering staff, who were a little bit quieter, they never worked. They still did a 5-day week.
Yeah.
So that was actually really nice to see. So people didn't take advantage because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want to have a secure business at the end of this, and we seem to have that, thankfully.
Okay, all right. So the only way you were impacted negatively was maybe actually getting hold of stock in your supply chain?
Well, it was, yes, for the food companies, pizza, chicken. People were panic buying, which went down the supply chain. We have high stock because we've been stocking up for Brexit, thankfully.
Yeah.
And we got extra production slots where the materials are made in France. But then the big problem was there weren't enough ferries to bring it across, so there were delays.
Yeah.
We never ran out. Nobody was let down. But for a couple of weeks, it was a little bit uncomfortable. But that was because the demand was so high. So I can't really complain.
And was that mainly in the food industry?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, all right, okay. So you mentioned the B word there, which I think everyone has forgotten about Brexit, but obviously it's going to have a huge impact on you. So what are your thoughts around that?
Well, it has. It's the media, isn't it? They've been hysterical on it for 3 years, and then it's gone quiet. All we can do as a business is stock up. We import pretty much the vast majority of the products we sell. We don't make them; we distribute them and we service them. So if there's delays coming in, that's not such a big issue. If there's extra administration, that's not such a big issue. The 2 areas that will really impact us is the exchange rate.
Yeah.
If because that makes it more expensive, and at some point you've got to try and pass that on. And if there's a tax, an import tax, which again we haven't got 100% clarity. Some of the products we think will be subject to WTO 6.5% tax, and that's fine. But we've got to be clear and start informing customers now. Now, that's if there's a no deal. So, you know, it's the tax and the exchange rate are the two biggest threats. The rest we can deal with. Delays at the port we can deal with. Administration we can deal with. But exchange rate and taxes are outside of our control.
Okay, good to know. Because there will be lots of other family businesses out there who will be absolutely affected by it. And thinking, we just got through this pandemic and then we're going to be hit with this. So it's good to know, you know, what's going on in other people's businesses. What would you say your challenges as a leader are day to day now that you've built this phenomenal business, you know, and you've built a wonderful team? So what are your challenges day to day now?
It's keeping the growth going. So the danger is complacency. You know, we've done really well. We've grown from 7 to 11 million. We're targeting 12 this next year, and we've got plans to get to 15. And there's a certain word I've banned in this business, the B word, the busy word, because nobody ever says they're busy in a positive sense. It's always busy in the context of, I can't do this because. Yeah. So, and the problem with that is, so it's keeping that sort of, if you want to call it pressure, good pressure. I mean, the sales team are pretty much motivated. There's an administration team, there's an engineering team, and right now they're all at full throttle. Yeah. And yet we just had, you know, news today that there's a recession on. So I do push probably a little bit too hard at times. But if I don't, nobody else. And that's my job. So, you know, sometimes it's not the easiest job in the world because you're not always the most liked person, but it is what it is. It's for the right reasons. Customer service cannot falter, and the growth plans cannot falter. So, and the other challenge, of course, is as you grow, you need to put more and more systems in place. Yeah. Then you got to get people to focus more and more on their jobs, because their jobs become more focused and bigger in their own right. So instead of, you know, when you're much smaller, you'll have a smaller team multitasking, and as you get bigger, you have a bigger team who do less multitasking. Yeah. And so we put in a lot of policies and procedures in place from an operational perspective, so that, you know, customers get absolutely the same service. Whichever service engineer goes, it's the same check sheet of service that's done, which wasn't always the case. So it's operational. I call it operational excellence is the bit I'm trying to push through, and that's the detail bit I'm rubbish at, but it's that.
And of course, that makes it scalable, doesn't it?
And so that's exactly the point.
Means you've got solid foundations to build on.
We've got to that point now where if we don't implement that, we've been working on this for the last 18 months, you know, policies and procedures getting written up, typed up, and getting implemented, and implementing them's harder. But, you know, you've got to give that consistency of service to the customer. You know, if you're going to be what I'd like to think world-class service. I liken it to the McDonald's. You get the same hamburger all over I want every customer to get the same service, whichever machine they have and whichever service engineer we send. Perfect. And that's, I refer to the McDonald's way, you know, down to how much ketchup goes into that burger is documented. And that's the granular detail that we're working on. And that's the challenge to scale up the business.
Amazing. Okay, so you mentioned back then that you made the jump from 7 to 11 million pounds in turnover. And I've met lots of family businesses who feel like they've just got stuck at a certain point. And that might be getting to 1 million or getting past 20 million. Are there a couple of things that you can think of that really helped make that jump and make that leap? Because it's not all just, you know, luck of your industry, or are there some certain things?
There is. Focus on your strengths. So 5-6 years ago, we took on a manufacturing business to start manufacturing some of the machines that we sell. With hindsight, it was the most ridiculous thing we ever did. It was an absolute dragon's den moment. You know, it was a failing business that we were doing some business with. We pretty much stepped in to save it. Saved 8 jobs. And for 4 years, tried to turn it around. And we ended up giving the business away in 2017. Give it away. It was turning over less than 1 million. It was 8% of our turnover, 80% of our issues. And it was the best decision I ever made to get rid of that business. Just give it away. The only thing I'm proud of is it saved 8 jobs. No creditor went bust because it would have gone bust, and they're still working in that area. But what it showed me that year was our turnover went up and our profitability went down because we were trying to save a loss-making part of the business. We cut it, and the minute we've cut it, we've grown 50% by focusing on your core strengths. Yeah. And and so there's a phrase I use in the business, because some of the sales lads are really, really enthusiastic about the growth, and we can do this, we can do that. And one thing you got to bear in mind is you can do anything, but you can't do everything. So you got to really focus, and that's the key word: focus on one thing at once. Nail that down, then do the next. And it's so easy to think, well, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. You're fighting on four fronts, and you achieve nothing. So we sacrificed a division of the business, and it was the right decision. And since then, the core business has grown 50%.
Amazing. And what's your focus?
What's my focus in the next 6 months is getting into this thing, because it's, we're moving a week before Brexit. Couldn't have timed it better, could we? After 43 years, we bought a building last year. We get the keys. It was a sale and lease back. It's 50% bigger. We've got a big office fit out to do and a lot of spend. So we're just about to appoint contractors right at the height of a COVID recession, and we'll move in over Christmas just before Brexit. Immense timing. We couldn't have timed it better. So for the next 6 months, that's my focus. Well, it's my sister's focus. She's running the detail, but I'm looking at how much it's costing. But again, we've got a solid base. We've just had a record month in July. We've had the record month in the entire history in July, which again I never expected to be the case.
No.
So I think we've got a good foundation. So my focus is getting to the building, and I'm always looking 12 months to 2 years ahead. So I'm looking how we'll get to 12 million by June next year, and I can already formulate the plans on how we're going to get to 15. So I'm always looking ahead. That's always my focus.
Amazing. And is it hard not to get pulled into the firefighting of day to day? Well,
one of my weaknesses was exactly that. I would micromanage and get involved with everything. And for the first 20 years, I had no choice, didn't have the resources. Now I have a philosophy about getting things done through people.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with my sister about, it's so easy when it's a family business to jump in and start micromanaging. And it's akin to buying a dog and barking yourself. It is absolutely pointless. If you employ people, you have to trust your team, and you have to get results through the team. Otherwise, you will never grow. I think looking back for years, I was probably the bottleneck because I couldn't do any more. And so now I will only do the things that only I can do. So big part of my focus is still sales. I'm front of house. I've been on customer side this morning, I've got on the customer. I can do all that. But when it comes to administration, when it comes to making the engineers do what they do, when it comes to operations, we're employing people in key positions to get those jobs done. We're not doing them ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's the only way you can scale up. And it comes back to this round pegs in round holes, instead of having one peg in 3 holes, which has normally been the case.
Amazing. And amazing to hear of a business that's thriving during this pandemic. And it must feel good knowing that you're able to give business to the contractors that are doing your refit and the people that are going to be kitting you out. And that must feel good that you're able to spend some money.
Yeah, but to be fair, they're really busy. Some of the 2 contractors have turned down the job because they don't have the capacity till after Christmas.
Wow. Okay.
So there is a bounce back in certain sectors. It's a strange recession.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it is good.
Okay. All right. So moving forward, you also got some very exciting times ahead. What are your hopes and aspirations for YPS?
It's just building something. I've consistently said it's not about the money, although you do measure your success, unfortunately, by money. But we've never been driven by the money. It's about building a sustainable business, which, to be fair, we've probably got. So my hopes and aspirations are just to keep it growing. And it's not a money thing. I just remember the dark old days when I started, when we were a much smaller business. We weren't making any money. Yeah. We had to sell something this month to pay the bills next month.
Yeah.
And so as I'll be 50 next year, so as I get to my 50 years, I probably will start to enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I never really have. I've just it's been my life's work. And you get to a certain age, you think, well, what's the point? So, but it isn't. It's never been about the money. It just never has been. I think if you chase the money, you'll fail.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. So, can I ask you for 2 or 3 things that you would say to any other family business leader out there today? Things that you could go away and implement today, or think about, or read up on, that would really help you get through the coming sort of weeks and months ahead.
Oh, crikey!
To build a stronger business.
Oh God, where do you start? I mean, there's so many things you could do, but it's the obvious stuff. You've got to focus on your customers. don't focus on your competition. I've been guilty of that. You know, don't worry about your competition. Be aware of what they're doing, but focus on your customers. Have confidence in your offering, because if you're not confident, your customers never will be. And just focus. It's all about customer service for me. If you get that right, the rest should follow. Without your customer, I mean, it's obvious, really, but so many businesses don't have a customer-focused approach. It can be an accounts-focused approach, or it could be an engineering, manufacturing approach. And it come across so many businesses that don't just focus on this, and that's something I instill all around this business. You know, if it's, you know, if there's ever anything customer focus wise that isn't right, I'll jump on it. Even the engineers now, we send out customer surveys so that we're benchmarking that, and we get how they know we do it, so they go the extra mile. And it's just nice to get good feedback. So it's obvious stuff, really. And when it comes to the financial stuff, cash, cash, cash. You know, you only ever go bust on your balance sheet, never your profit and loss account. So money's cheap. So I would borrow money because it's so cheap. If you've got any qualms about the recession, it doesn't matter how much you've got in the bank. You know, you can borrow money so cheap. Use it as an insurance policy, because the banks will never lend it when you need it. So you're better off borrowing it when you don't need it, and just take the interest as an insurance policy. Yeah. If you pay it back and you don't use it, well, you're still in business, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, fantastic. And in terms of your mental strength as a leader, what do you do to keep yourself sane, to keep yourself growing and educated? Are there any resources or things that you do?
It's a combination of exercise and drink in equal measure. Not quite in equal, but no, it's I do try and keep. I think if you keep yourself physically fit, or try to, it gets harder as you get older. But you know, I do boot camp, I do run, and it is harder. And I think keeping some sort of physical in shape does help mentally. You certainly have more energy, I find. If you know, I haven't exercised as much in lockdown, and I felt it.
Yes.
And it's just a momentum thing. If you keep up to some sort of exercise, it definitely helps you mentally with energy, and that's good. So what I find.
Okay. Any final words to family businesses out there today?
Not really. Just focus on what you're good at. Family businesses can be pragmatic, can move faster than bigger companies, and you know, can focus on the customer, I think, a lot better than bigger companies, where, you know, one size fits all with large companies quite often, and one size doesn't fit all. You've got to have, you know, if you have policies and procedures, the guidelines are not set in stone. Yeah. And just focus on your strengths. That's the one thing I've picked up on. Just focus on your strengths and put key people in key positions. Recruitment, good recruitment, easier said than done.
Perfect. Glyn, thank you so much for your time today and for being on the Family Business Show. Really useful, valuable stuff. Thank you.